15 unique bourbon distilleries within 45 miles of downtown. That's what you can expect in Lexington, Kentucky, the bourbon lover's ultimate playground. Lexington is the perfect hub for your bourbon-infused vacation, and VisitLEX will help you create the perfect itinerary along the Kentucky Bourbon Trail. For more information, go to visitlex.com, that's VisitLEX.com, and discover all the ways to enjoy the horse and, in our opinion, bourbon, capital of the world. There's a new award-winning 4-grain straight bourbon whiskey that's been taking the market by storm, Penelope Bourbon. Bottled in historic Bardstown, Kentucky, Penelope's balanced yet flavorful taste profile comes from a unique blend of 3 bourbon mash bills. Currently available in multiple expressions, Penelope is remarkably smooth and flavorful. So whether you're sipping neat or using it in your favorite cocktail, Penelope is the perfect choice for you. Penelope's full lineup is available in select markets as well as online. Visit PenelopeBourbon.com to learn more and to find a store near you.
With Liquor Barn, you can shop your favorite bourbon, that perfect bottle of wine, or discover something new. To place an order for pickup or delivery, download the Liquor Barn app, visit liquorbarn.com, or call your nearest Liquor Barn location. Follow us on social media and subscribe to our email list for all the latest news on products, promotions, and events. Liquor Barn, where Kentuckians go to celebrate life. Cheers!
Welcome to the Bourbon Life Podcast, your source for all things bourbon. Join your hosts, Mark and Matt, as they drink and review bourbons, share news about upcoming events, interview the who's who in the bourbon world, and, most importantly, bring you along for the fun of living the bourbon life. Now, here's your hosts, Mark and Matt.
All right, everybody, welcome back for another episode of the Bourbon Life Podcast. I'm your host, Mark, and with me tonight live here in the Bourbon Life Studios, around the flights of the round, it's my good friend, Matt. Matt, what's going on? I guess we're not really around when it's just you and me, is it?
That's right. We're just across the flights of the round.
Yeah, across the flights of the round table. So, man.
Yeah, the flights of the big long table.
Yeah.
This evening.
So, how you doing tonight?
Oh, Mark, I'm doing great. How are you, man?
I'm living the dream, living the bourbon dream.
You are living the bourbon dream, aren't you?
I'm trying, man. I'm doing the best I can. So, yeah, man, it's been an exciting week, and we can kind of jump into that.
Yeah.
Here in just a little bit.
Yeah, we will definitely get into that. I imagine.
Yeah, but we are the Bourbon Life Podcast, presented by VisitLEX. We appreciate their support. We appreciate all of our sponsors, everything they do for us. And with that said, Matt, I'm going to say you want to tell everybody who we have with us tonight.
That's right. We got kind of a different show. So this evening, this afternoon, this morning, whenever it is you're listening to us, evening for us recording right now, right. But you are just going to be getting Mark and I.
Man, how long has it been?
It's been a bit since we've had one of these shows, and I think this actually comes at a pretty good time.
Yeah.
I feel we've had really good run of guests so far this year in 2023, really good crew shows here in 2023. And I think we need a chance just to catch our listeners up on us.
Yeah, man.
Kind of decompress a little bit and just sit around and chew the fat some.
Yeah. Hey, when it comes to that,
come on. Get out of here.
But wait. There we go, Matt, just for you, man.
Oh, that's so special.
Yeah, man. So, but before we jump into everything, let's talk about what we have poured up.
Because let's do it.
I just got this sent today. This is from Broken Barrel. If you guys aren't familiar with Broken Barrel, basically what they do, they're out he's in LA, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so he takes whiskey that he sources, and then he gets old barrels.
He being Seth Bernheim.
Yes, I'm sorry. Thank you, Seth Bernheim. Yep. And he's been a guest on our show, but he takes old barrels, he breaks them up literally, like with a sledgehammer and axe and everything else, breaks them up, and then takes those staves and drops them into his whiskey, right?
Yeah, and so they're we've seen a lot now in the industry where people are going to finished bourbons, and they'll say, this is finished in a whatever cask or finished with these staves. But they are, I think, the first company to actually come out with not just a mash bill of the bourbon or the whiskey, the rye, but they also have an oak bill,
correct?
Right, a stave bill. So it should say right on the bottle what the percentage of each type of stave that the bourbon is finished with, correct?
Very good point, Matt. Yes, and it's trademarked. I remember him saying that.
Yeah, their oak bill is a trademark thing, and it's not always the same. It's
so we can hold that, see if that bottle. I'm trying to get better here with the cameras. Anyway, so that's it. 100 proofer here, and like Matt said, this has a blend. I don't know if everybody can see that on the label or not, but it has the different whiskeys in this, and this one actually is a straight American whiskey finished with broken barrel staves. It's 100 proof. The mash bill, it says it's 80% corn, 14% rye, 6% malted barley. That's kind of odd. That's a very low malted barley content. Mm-hmm. But the oak bill, which what Matt just referred to, is 40% charred American oak, 40% charred. Toasted American. I was like, hold on a second. They both say American oak. Yeah, 40% charred, 40% toasted, and then 20% American apple brandy cask.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So that's the bill on this. So it's a whiskey, corn whiskey. Well, yeah, 80% corn, 14% rye, 6% malted barley, finished with that unique oak bill. These bottles are really cool too, man. I mean, these are.
Yeah.
It kind of has that. Well,
a little bit of like that peerless.
I was just to say, I didn't want to.
Yeah.
But
sorry, I guess we're
that's
not
okay.
supposed to be mentioning.
No, it's no big deal. I mean, it's no big deal. But yeah, they got the name embossed in the glass. I mean, my guess is that's a pretty expensive bottle. Mm-hmm. It's got the pickaxe and the sledgehammer crossed at the top there. And I believe I read a story that may have been his father's pickaxe or something that he uses. Just kind of a neat little story. But yeah, we had him on the show. Was that last year? Year before?
What? Either late season 2 or early season 3, I'm going to guess.
Yeah. And we had him, the pictures he sent for promotions. I mean, it's him with the sledgehammer. I mean, he's just like breaking these barrels to pieces. So it's a really neat product. And Seth's a really neat guy. Got to hang out with him. He was down at the Bourbon Festival, right?
Yeah.
We ran into him.
Yep, we ran into him at Bardstown.
Oh, we went to dinner. He was at dinner that night, wasn't he? Yeah. So Seth's a good guy. Just had a lot of success at which competition was it?
I feel like you could pick one. They've had a really good run and success at any of them.
Yeah. Just like a couple of weeks ago, though, there were a bunch. They won like best bourbon, best finished bourbon, best overall bourbon. I mean, they won a lot of at this. I can't remember which competition it was, but it was a whiskey, spirits competition. So
I'm a huge fan of theirs personally. I think everything they've done and the way that they've stepped outside the boundaries with the different oak bills, and they're not afraid to disrupt a little bit.
Oh yeah,
I'm cool with that.
I don't even want to get into it. What was the movie, The Glass Onion, The Disruption? Did you ever see that?
I don't think I did.
He's a disruptor. Anyway, so that kind of became a very odd word. Anyway, you have to see the movie to catch that reference. But if anybody out there has seen it, you know what I'm talking about. But no, Seth is a disruptor in a good way with what he is doing. So Matt, what are you picking up, man, in terms of the nose on this one?
It's got the nose is kind of peculiar. I want to say
peculiar.
It's really savory to me. Like it has like really savory corn, like popcorn, buttery notes, like deep, like kettle corn, kind of without the sweetness right on the nose.
Yep.
And I also pick up like this savory, like, and I've picked this up before, but it almost smells like chicken broth type soup aroma.
Just very savory.
Yeah, like really savory, earthy. But then also on this, there's some brightness. I think that apple brandy barrel's coming through a little bit. There's a little bit of crisp.
Yep, I agree.
Some crisp flavor that's cutting through all the savory notes on it as well. But really nice nose.
Of course, Matt, my wife did make chicken noodle soup.
She did. Yeah, and I was thinking I didn't want to like play into that, but this does kind of remind me a little bit of like a savory type soupy, earthy aroma.
Isn't that funny though? Because there is a lot of sweetness, obviously, with the 80% corn. But yeah, you're talking about the kettle corn. I'm doing my Freddie Johnson thing. They talked about going nostril.
Yeah, he talks about that, and to this. And I've tried that on our shows, going side to side, side to side. For me,
it doesn't make a difference.
No, I only get it like my left nostril. This is the one.
I got you. All right. Mine does change. I've noticed it does.
Doesn't.
So it takes me a few seconds to kind of dial it in. But as you were talking, I mean, I was getting what you're saying, and I agree with that. A very, very unique profile. But I do like that sweetness. I like that, like you said, the popcorn. That's a great descriptor. Kettle corn, the sweetness with that corn that comes through. Of course, at 80% corn, that's going to be expected. So we'll talk about the palate and the profile or the finish here in just a little bit. So
yeah. So anyway, let me kind of take over here because I feel.
Oh man,
I feel maybe I'm going to be driving a little bit of the conversation here because we're going to treat Mark as our guest.
Yeah.
This afternoon, this morning, this evening, whenever it is you're listening. So I was out on a run this morning and I was thinking, what are some things in this world that there are only 5 of? The Great Lakes.
Nice.
Huron, Ontario, Michigan, Erie Superior.
Nice. You're Michigonander, man. You got it.
Yeah, right. Days in the year that I haven't done something to aggravate my girlfriend. Maybe not even 5 of those.
Sarah, I hope you're not listening.
Don't worry, she's not.
She's not.
Yeah. And most recently and finally, Masters of Bourbon in the world.
Yeah.
And we, and I include myself in that, our fellow listener here, we are lucky enough to have one of them on the show and with us every week here.
Yeah.
Mark is now a certified Master of Bourbon.
Thank you.
So yeah, first off, congratulations. But
Thanks.
What's up, man? Tell us a little bit about this. So first off, what is a Master of Bourbon?
Yeah, I'm kind of getting that Freddie Johnson feeling. It's kind of weird. It's like it's always,
you don't want to talk about yourself.
It's just weird because week after week, Matt, we talk to all these guests and it's always their story and what they're doing. But yeah, so it's kind of awkward to be on the other side of that for me. But
yeah, well, everybody knows you're an attorney. You went to UK 3 times over from Eastern Kentucky. Wow. But there's also this other stuff too. So you are recently a certified Master of Bourbon.
Yeah. So there's a group of experts out there that's called the Council of Whiskey Masters, and they started back in 2018. And it was a guy out, Jorn Kleinhaus is his name. Everybody calls him Joey. But he is originally from Germany. But he had the idea to start a group of experts that would work together to help develop standards in the world of whiskey. And Joey had experience in the wine world. And of course, the Master Somm training, and there's all these very specific training things that you can go through with regard to wine. But there really wasn't anything specifically geared towards whiskey. I mean, there's the certified specialist of spirits that you can get, and that's through the Spirits and Wine Education, SWE, I think is what it's called.
But that would be just like a certification that touches on a little bit of everything. So you're like jack of all trades, master of none.
Correct. There's also the WSET, the Wine Spirits Education Trust out of London. They do level 1, 2, and 3, but again, that's in spirits or wine. But again, spirits is a broad, and I did level 2 in spirits, which was great because it exposed me to a lot of different things that I've never, I went out and bought a bottle of Armagnac, which I'd never owned. I bought a bottle of Grappa, which I'd never owned. Bought a 15-year-old bottle of rum, a bottle of a 15-year-old rum, which I'd never done before. So it kind of opened the door to a lot of these different spirits that I'd never experienced, and it was really cool. But again, nothing specifically towards whiskey. There's the Certified Bourbon Steward program, which Stave and Thief does, and I went through that, and I really enjoyed doing that. But this group got together and they wanted to put together a group of industry experts, writers, judges, spirits critics, people that could come together, work together, really develop some standards, training-wise, education-wise, and really try to set the standard for what whiskey education should be in the world. So that's really their mission, what their goal is. And last year when I'd actually signed up for the CSS, the Certified Specialist of Spirits. So I'd signed up for that, and I was doing some more research on other training programs, and I ran across this group, and I thought, well, that looks really cool. And I looked at their list of people who are involved in it, and it's like, Peggy Noe Stevens is one of their advisory council members. Steve Beal, who's a legend with Diageo, is part of that. Lou Bryson, who's a very well-known writer. Michael Veach, who's like the king of bourbon history in Kentucky, is part of it. And of course, they do have some, European guys that are more Scotch, Irish whiskey type of thing. But it seemed like a great group of people, and it seemed legitimate. It's a little more expensive. So they had a baseline program called the Certified Bourbon Professional. So I thought, okay, I'll give it a try, see how it goes. So I did that last year, passed, and it's just an online course like the Certified Bourbon Steward.
Mm-hmm.
You get a book, you read it, you take an online test, you pass it, you get certified, right? So I did that, and then the next level that you complete is the Certified Whiskey Professional. So that not only focuses on American whiskey, but also brings in Scotch and Japanese and Irish and other whiskeys that are being made around the world. So it really broadened my knowledge base. Mm-hmm. And I spent a lot of time. There's a book by a guy named Dave Broom. It's called The World Atlas of Whiskey. He wrote the original version, I think it was back in 2004. And then he did a second edition in 2013. And I think he's working on his third edition now. Mm-hmm. But it's crazy. 250 some odd pages. I mean, it's like a encyclopedia.
Yeah.
Great pictures, but just a ton of information. And he talks about different brands, and he also offers tasting notes on certain expressions from those brands. So I took that exam again. It was online, self-study online, about the same price as what the Certified Bourbon Professional was. So I passed that. And the next step, it's like Ironman, right? It's like I did a 5K, and then I thought, well, I could do 10K.
So I'm seeing you're like slowly whittling down to like your specialty.
Yes,
here.
correct.
So you started with level 1 spirits, then level 2 whiskey, then... Is it correct? Level 3 was the
Master of Bourbon.
Okay.
Yeah. So that was, it was over 3 days, 2 days of testing. It involved an 8 bourbon blind test, which sounds, when you think about it initially, it's like, oh, that's easy. but then when you really get into it, it's like, it's not necessary. And I could talk some more about everything that was part of that.
Yeah. Maybe we'll say that for round 2 here. We'll get into some more of the specifics.
We can go to the specifics on it. And then the same day we did a written essay exam. There were 6 questions that we had to answer. We had 20 minutes each question, so 2 hours. And then the second day of testing was an oral examination where the judges could ask you anything. I mean, it was like Face the Nation. There were 7 of us total that tried, or seven total for the bourbon. So there was a group of 4 and a group of 3, and I was in the group of 3, but there were like 7 judges across the table from us. So any judge could ask any one of us any question they wanted to. So it was pretty intimidating, man.
Wow. Okay, so 2 full days of testing.
Yeah.
And this is, of course, you're omitting the whole part of like your 6 months of studying, 6+ months of
correct
studying and preparing for this in advance. It's not just like one wouldn't show up, like college style, pulling an all-nighter and expect to...
It doesn't work that way.
You can stand a chance.
There were 8 books that were on their suggested reading list. Mm-hmm. So I read all 8 of those. A couple of them I actually ended up reading twice. So that was, probably 40 to 50 pages. Tried to read like 40 or 50 pages almost every night of a different book. We're going back and rereading the same book. Mm-hmm. And then the blind tastings. I got to the point where I was doing 8 different bourbons every day and doing it, every day. So the tasting, we'll talk about it more later, how it was structured. But it was just repetition, familiarity, but just the practice. It's like anything else you do. It's like working out, lifting weights or running or swimming or whatever. The more you do it, the more, I guess, the better you get at it, but the more your body just adapts and adjusts to it. Yeah. So it was the same with tasting, because the running joke on our show obviously is Mark's palate, it's vanilla and caramel, right? That's really the way I've kind of viewed myself. I've taken it seriously, but I've got you. So it's like, what tasting notes can I add?
I don't know if that makes it legit or not.
But it's true. Because we are a show, we're a team, and the goal is to provide tasting notes so our listeners know what the whiskeys we taste like and smell like are, what they are. And if you do that, which you do very well, to me, it's always just been like, there's no reason for me to be good at this because Matt is. Please. No, I'm serious. I'm honest, Matt. There's been no reason. I enjoy drinking. I enjoy the interview. I enjoy the conversation. that's the part that I feel like I'm good at, kind of guiding the conversation with our guest, coming up with the questions and just leading everything and trying to keep it all on track. And I enjoy doing that. But yeah, for tasting notes, no, that's always been the joke, right?
But here you were, and you're on the spot, blind, no less.
Blind, yeah, on the spot. So that was kind of wild. But yeah, we're at Buffalo Trace. So Buffalo Trace isn't part of the council, but we got to utilize the facilities there. So we were, they have the cabin, is it the Elmer T. Lee? I think it's his. Anyway, I think he built it, but it's their lodge basically that's on site there. It's almost right across. It's kind of down and across from the gift shop. I'm drawing maps here, right? With my hands.
Directing people.
Yeah, directing people. But yeah, so we were in there we had an opening dinner Tuesday night in downtown Frankfort, which was about 4 hours. That's where we got to meet the judges for the first time. I'll talk about that in round 2.
Yeah, because that's got to be pretty intimidating, huh?
Let me tell you, man. So that was Tuesday night. And then Wednesday, we did 2 rounds of testing. But we had a great tour. We got to go on a tour that afternoon with Freddie Johnson. Hey. And he asked about you.
Oh, no, he didn't.
I swear he did.
What a guy.
Because I went up and said, hey, Freddie, Mark with the Bourbon Life. He goes, oh, man, I didn't know you were doing this. He's like, is Matt here with you? I was like, no, Matt's not.
He's like, oh, good.
Matt's not here.
God.
But he did ask about you, man. He really did. I was super impressed, number one, that he remembered me. I mean, it just, because he meets so many people, right?
Yeah.
But he knew who I was before I even said my name. And then he instantly asked if you were there too. So I was like, that's pretty damn impressive, man. So we did a great tour with him. And then the next day we did a tour with a guy named Eugene. He did a great job. And we got to see Bourbon Pompeii, which is the old fermentation tanks that Colonel Taylor had built that were copper lined.
Yeah.
And they were doing that excavation several years ago and actually uncovered those.
Great segment about that in Paul Packelt's book.
Yeah,
about
that's
Buffalo
right.
Trace. Buffalo, what was it?
Bourbon, buffaloes, and barrels or something.
Barrels, bourbons, and bluegrass and buffalo.
There's 3 Bs. It's like bourbon, buffaloes, and barrels, I think. But I can't remember what order.
Yeah.
But F. Paul Packelt.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome.
Which is a great book all about Buffalo Trace, the history of Kentucky and the history of the Kentucky distillery that became Buffalo Trace.
Yeah, it's a great book, man. So many people love Buffalo Trace, but to know the history and get to read about the guys, the people that were there throughout the years, how it started. I mean, and he goes back to the monolithic age or whatever.
No stone uncovered in that one.
Yeah, he went back a couple 100,000 years on that one, but still very, very, for a history guy like me, it was really cool. But for a bourbon fan as well, it's a great book. But yeah, so I got to see that. I'd never seen that before, man. And so just a really good time. But we're close to the end of round 1 here, Matt. We should probably
let's get to it then.
We should probably talk about
some
this
tasting notes here.
Yeah, man.
All right, Master, what you got?
I've only I took one taste about 15 minutes ago,
all right,
man.
I'll go
So
for it.
I've been talking a lot, What can I say?
That's true. I've been grilling you over here.
You opened the door for me, man. See the mistake? You said, hey, Mark, talk.
All right. So this to me, I like that it is a corn whiskey and not specifically a bourbon. And now that could be maybe it reached the age necessary for a bourbon, but it was not put in new charred oak or there something for some reason this was not a bourbon. So it's a corn whiskey, 80% corn. I like the corn forward palate right on the front. It's got that like cornbread, cream corn, and then something that I'm finding more and more in high corn content whiskeys and mash bills. There's a mintiness, like a freshness, mint flavor. And this could be also because there's 14% rye in that?
There is.
14, yeah.
So it is a mid-range rye.
So it opens up really nice with that, like that good corn flavor, corn pudding, butterscotch pudding almost.
Yeah, and it's distilled in Indiana and Kentucky. Yep. So
then I think the influence from the oak bill comes through. It's got charred and toasted oak. So some of those campfire flavors come through. Some of those dark, like heavily charred flavors come through, almost like dark molasses, like kind of burnt sugar type flavors. Sugar. Yeah. And then that apple brandy kind of is a nice crisp touch to the finish, kind of brightens up things on the way down and the way out. And this is what, 50%, 100 proof?
100 proof, yeah.
So yeah, not a whole lot of burn or alcohol burn to it at all. I think drinks really well. Kind of a unique offering, but
the level of, it's almost spiciness, on my palate on this one. It's I'm kind of surprised. 14% rye usually hits me in a certain way, and this one just seems like it has a higher rye content. So I don't know if that's the effect of the different staves that are in there that has somehow added something to it that made it come across as more spicy. But yeah, I mean, I like the combination. To me, Matt, this actually drinks hotter than 100 proof. So,
I gotta agree.
Okay, I was gonna say, I don't know if it's just my palate or just me. I kind of got a bit of a sore throat today too, so I'm not sure if I'm just off on that. But yeah, I'm glad you said that, 'cause I was like, this is going down a lot hotter than 100 proof to me.
Yeah, but I think it's a good sipping whiskey.
I agree. I should have put some water in it just to see.
Yeah,
that's another thing I learned. I'm just gonna say, Matt, something I've never done before, but
yeah, a little splishy splash.
Man. It seems to work. So I'm just gonna leave it at that. Matt, we're at the end of round one. Why don't we take a quick break, get a word from our sponsors, and we'll come back and talk more about
you,
about me and the Masters of Bourbon.
That's right.
Everybody just sit. Please hang around for round two. We'll be back with more in just a minute.
Three Chord's line of whiskeys embody the spirit of creativity. The whiskey is a true collaboration between producer and composer Neil Giraldo and master blender distiller Ari Sussman. The Three Chord team of expert blenders, coopers, and sensory professionals have developed a multi-step process they call Perfectly Tuned Taste. This process begins by carefully selecting the finest bourbon and rye whiskeys from Kentucky, Tennessee, and Indiana, and then blending them together. Find out more about the whiskeys and distribution in your area at www.threechordbourbon.com.
From our good friends at the Stave comes Lexington's newest hotspot to meet up with friends, have fun, and eat some great food. District 7 Social is a social and beer hall, but it's a lot more than that. Located in Lexington's Distillery District, it's the home of Lexington's first duck pin bowling lanes, and it also features a self-serve beer wall. That's right, self-serve. And if you want more, they've got it. You can try one of their delicious cocktails from the bar or order some great German fusion food from their on-site eatery, Germanish. So what are you waiting for? Be seen, be social. District 7 Social. All right, everybody, welcome back for round two of the Bourbon Life Podcast. I'm your host, Mark, and with me tonight, live here in the Bourbon Life Studios, otherwise known as my beautiful basement, it's my good friend, Matt. Matt, how you doing down there at the end of this long table?
Oh, Mark, I'm doing great. And we are at the table.
Yeah, man.
So this is, I mean, I want to pick up the camera and like turn it and show everybody the beautiful table, but I know you took so much time in getting it in focus, and getting me in the frame. And,
I know,
that's a waste of time anyway. But
and it's the new setup, because the first time we did video, I had the 3 different Sony cameras.
Oh God, you were
was that crazy?
A full-on producer over there pushing buttons like a DJ.
I was switching. I had the switcher running, the cameras running. I was like, man, if I have to do this even just once a month, I'm going to lose my damn mind. So I found those little cameras, man, the Mevos from Logitech, and Logitech makes decent little webcams and stuff. And I read a bunch of reviews, and I thought, I'm going to give these a shot. So I bought 3 of them to get a 3-pack, and I was like, yep, this is going to work.
Perfect.
So much easier. They're wireless. They run over the internet. They run through my iPad that I've got here on the table with us, and I'm not worried about switching. It's just going to be constant video from every camera that's running. I hope it works.
We'll see. Hey, if nothing else, we're having a good time drinking.
We are, man. It's been a long time. Like I said, first round. I honestly don't remember the last time that you and I just sat here, probably when we were still recording over on the sofa in the chair, man.
We had one.
Did we do one here?
Maybe like back in January, beginning of this season or the end of last season. I feel like I remember one, but we had an unfortunate cancellation of one of our guests, but it's actually all right. It gives us a chance to,
man,
you and I just sit back and, man, do we have a lot to talk about.
Yeah.
clue everybody in. But first, what we're drinking? Yeah, that's right. I guess I'm up on this one here.
You're killing it on this one, dude. This is
this is the special occasion bottle, and this is a special occasion. So if you've sat through round one, you know that we're talking about Mark and his certification to become a Master of Bourbon, only one of 5 in the world. And so I decided we had to break out a pretty nice bottle. So this is the 2017 edition of the E.H. Taylor 4-grain. This is a bottled and bond. This was their limited release that they come out with every year in a different style each year. But in 2017 and 2018, they released the 4-grain. I believe they said this was either a 10 or an 11-year bourbon itself. And this won Whiskey of the Year when it came out. And that's not just Bourbon of the Year, that's whiskey. So best whiskey of Scotch, Japanese, Irish, American. It was overall
all the stuff.
Yeah, best whiskey of the year. So we are celebrating on a nice special occasion. So
cheers, Matt.
Hey, cheers to you, Mark. What are you picking up there? I haven't had a chance to get into it yet.
Yeah, man. You know, it's funny because the first thing that I noticed is actually the hint of oak that comes through. I pick up the wood on it, but you said 10 or 11. I wasn't sure how old it was, but when you said that, I was like, okay, I do actually get that. It's not anywhere near overpowering, but then it kind of fades into like a dried fruit kind of aroma to me. And then also kind of tending maybe towards that. It reminds me so much of like my dad's pipe tobacco from when I was a kid, almost like even a cherry kind of hint of cherry tobacco, little leather, that's that age. And it was funny because I'm sitting here. Here's the thing, Matt. Yes, Master of Bourbon certified, but there's still this whole thing in my mind of, man, am I really smelling? Is that what I smell? Is it, it's awkward sometimes to still search those memory banks to think that's the aroma. That's what I'm smelling. That's what I pick it up. So yeah, I mean, sitting here smelling it, it's like, man, that's my dad sitting in his chair when I was a kid, smoking his pipe with that, cherry flavored tobacco. It's just that leather smell, the old baseball glove thing, Yeah. I mean, just all these unique aromas. Almost, kind of a not a burnt sugar, but like a brown sugar or a deep kind of a nice toasted sugar type of aroma as well that comes through. So Matt, that's, hey, that's better than vanilla and caramel, right? So.
No, you just took a bunch of my tasting notes there that I'm smelling on this one. It's the first thing I got was a real nice whiff of that oak. So you can tell that it's definitely been in the barrel for a little bit of time. It's got that nice maturity coming through from the oak. The leather, the tobacco notes were definitely prominent for me.
Sure. Which is a nice sign of age, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's usually when I think of, here's and a funny thing, like even like Eagle Rare, which you think, it's such a baseline bourbon, but it's 10 years old.
Yeah.
And I've noticed as I was doing these tastings that was one of the bourbons, every time I'd smell or taste it, that I would get a hint of leather. I mean, and that to me just started becoming that indicator of a bourbon that has some higher age, above that 6 to 8 or 6, 7, whatever. But anyway, Matt, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, you're absolutely right. I'm picking up some of the dried fruits, like you said, cherry. I think there's a little bit of apricot for me on here as well, too. A little grassiness too, like maybe some of that rye coming through, and a little bit of toast, like toasted bread. Kind of that fresh baked toasted bread aroma as well. So just really nice homogeneous nose.
I'm curious on this process, Matt. Do you know on their 4-grain, do you know and I'm assuming they did, but do we know, did they mash in all 4 grains?
I would believe so. I don't believe
it's not like Canadian whiskey where they blend, do everything. Like they make the corn whiskey, they make the rye whiskey, they make the wheat whiskey, and then they blend those.
This is like it's
actually
Al Law's style 4-grain distilled,
mashed in,
fermented together.
Very cool.
Run together.
It's funny because I'm going back to smell that other one.
Yeah, actually, I think it has a few similarities.
I do too. I mean, I'm really kind of surprised because now I'm starting to pick up almost like a little bit of a leather on this one, which I know there's no age to it. So, but there is some similarities, the fruitiness, the dried fruit, that apple brandy. But I think to me, it's coming through as more of a dried, red fruit, maybe something like that on the first one. But But yeah, there are some similarities there. 100 proof, but I haven't taken a swig of it yet. So we'll talk about that more in just a little bit, right?
Yeah. But anyway, back to the Master of Bourbon cert here. So we got you through kind of your day one, see everything, sights and sounds, get the tour. And now we're on to day 2, right?
Oh, yeah.
Getting down to brass tacks.
Yeah.
So it starts right out, first thing, with a blind tasting.
Blind tasting, man. You walk in, there's 8 glasses on the table. They had prepared a Google sheet for us that we were going to use. And the Google sheet was broken down into 8 columns, one for each whiskey. But there were different things that you had to try to pinpoint to pick out about the whiskey. So they wanted to know what the dominant tasting notes are. And they didn't want you to go into a huge description of, and that was the one thing I learned about a lot of these guys. They're like, look, if you're trying to sell a product to somebody, then yes, you want to be, notes of grandma's peanut butter pie or something like that, right?
Yeah.
But if you're just trying to provide notes that are a generalization that everybody can understand, not everybody's going to know what grandma's peanut butter pie tastes like, right? But most people, if you say peanuts, people know what a peanut tastes like.
Yeah.
Or if they know what an orange tastes like versus grandma's orange marmalade that she used to make, I mean, those are fun descriptors, but at the same time, they just are like short, concise. They want those notes that you can pick out. So that was part of it. The age, what you think the age of the whiskey was, the proof of the whiskey as well. The mash bill, and not like a specific breakdown, but that's the way I learned it. I mean, that's every whiskey that I tasted, I was very adamant to try to figure out what my focus was like. Okay, is it a wheated bourbon? Well, then I'm not going to worry about the percent wheat. You just say it's a wheated mash bill.
Yeah.
But if it's a rye mash bill, I wanted to be able to say, yes, it's a low rye mash bill or it's a high rye. And that to me was like an 18% cutoff. So if I thought it was 18% or below 18%,
low rye,
I would say it's a low rye. If it was 18 or above, then I would say that's more of a higher rye mash bill. Because, most whiskeys you're not going to get, other than Four Roses, I mean, these heritage brands, you're not going to, they have their B bill, right, that goes up to 35% rye.
Yeah.
Their A or their E is what, 21?
That sounds right, yeah.
So, you run into that 18%, you're going to have the Heaven Hill products. But anyway, so that was the other thing you had to do. If there was any type of special production processes, and see, they were doing the Masters of Scotch as well. So there, they have worm tubs, they have other different types of production steps that they can take. So, and apparently those things can be detectable supposedly in a Scotch. I don't know. I mean, there's really no special different production techniques for most bourbons. I mean, everything's pretty much made on a beer still, and it's condensed and it's doubled or thumped, So that was pretty much all across the board was like, yeah, none. And then any special maturation processes. So if it was a barrel finished, they wanted us to try to pick that out as well. And then they actually wanted us to we didn't have to pick the brand, but they wanted us to try to tell them who the producer of the whiskey was. Yeah.
Oh, so, I guess I didn't know that.
Yeah. So in the style of, or similar to, or like, so they didn't want me to say, yes, this is Eagle Rare, but they would want me to give all the elements of what I tasted. Okay, it's 40. And actually that was one of the bourbons, right? So in my tasting notes, I was tasting it. I was thinking, man, this tastes a lot like Eagle Rare, because I'm getting that leather. I'm getting all these notes that are similar. So I'm writing my notes out. And then I'm like, yeah, the proof point feels about 90 proof. I mean, that's kind of the way my physiologically, the way I interpret proof is just the way it affects my entire mouth. So I just from doing all the tastings over and over and over, I just kind of knew what 90 proof felt like.
Yeah.
So like, okay, this one's 90 proof. And then I was like, rye mash bill. Yeah, it's rye. There's no question about it. But it's a lower rye because again, just the way my palate responds to a lower rye. And after I did all that, I'm thinking, okay, this is probably 10 years old because I'm thinking it's probably Eagle Rare. Yeah. I don't know for sure, but I'm picking up those notes that make me think it's older.
Yeah, those older barreled notes that we're kind of discussing with this 4 grain.
Exactly right.
Those leathers, tobaccos, oak influence.
Yep, I'm getting those notes. I'm getting that. I know it's at that 45% ABV. I know it's at that 10% or lower, rye, or I think it is anyway. So I'm running through the list because we knew going in there was like 25 different bourbons. but it could have been any variation of bourbon, So, for example, like Woodford Reserve was on the list, but they could have given us a Woodford Rye, or they could have given us a Woodford Double Oaked, which they did.
Okay.
So you don't know for sure, but it's just kind of getting you in the style of. So that's why they wanted, instead of saying this is Eagle Rare, they just wanted you to say this is produced in the style of Buffalo Trace. So that's all I did. But to them, that was a hit. It was like, yeah, you got 45%, which is right. You got low rye mash bill, which is right. You got tasting notes right. You got the fact that it was a Buffalo Trace product. You got that right. So to them, that's like a direct hit.
Yeah.
Yeah. So kind of crazy, Matt.
Wow. So you had 8 samples to do this with.
Oh yeah, 8 samples. And you get 30 minutes to do it.
Wow, for 8 samples.
8 samples. That's 3 minutes, a little over 3 minutes per sample, man.
Wow.
I'm telling you, it sounds like forever, but you've got a Google spreadsheet on your laptop and you have to type in this information. So you're not just talking to somebody. You're tasting and you're typing your thoughts and everything. So you're trying to do all this with each expression in 3.5 minutes or less.
So what was your strategy? Like, did you go in and immediately, like, a couple you knew so that you could be like, all right, I think I know this is Eagle Rare. Let me just put this one aside, focus on the other ones and come back. I didn't, Matt, just because the way I practiced, I just focused on one at a time. Mm-hmm. But now when I walked in and saw the bourbons on the table, number 3, I looked at it. I could just look at it in a glass and I was like, that's Woodford Double Oaked. I mean, I don't know of any other bourbon that really, maybe 1910. Just because of the color?
Just the color.
Yeah.
I mean, that was instantly in my mind. It's like that is a barrel finished just because of the color. Mm-hmm. So that was already in my head. And when I took the little cover off the glass, because they pour the bourbons like 20 minutes before we even get in.
Yeah.
And then you sit there for 30 minutes. Then I left everything covered except the one that I was, nosing at the time because I didn't want everything to dissipate.
Yeah.
So I took the lid off the number 3 and I was like, that's double oaked. I mean, it's just got that aroma, right? I mean, even if you haven't, and I hadn't had a double oaked probably in months. It wasn't on my training list, but it was one of those things where,
as Chris Morris said, it's Chris Morris, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's meant to be, to blow your palate away in one direction, to be unbalanced.
And we talked about that too. And they were like, what do you mean unbalanced? And I'm like, let me tell you. Chris Morris. No, I did. I mean, I didn't do that. But yeah, I mean, seriously, I mean, that's the conversation. And that's, to me, it was kind of cool, Matt, just to have these conversations with these judges simply because you and I have been so fortunate in what we do here to have these conversations with these guys that are making this stuff, man. Mm-hmm. So it's, I mean, I'm sitting there and, they were talking about the barrels and they're like, because they asked, they're like, well, Mark, you said it's a barrel finish. So what do you think it was finished? I'm like, well, to me, it's reminiscent of what Woodford does with their double oaked. So I know that is a heavily toasted and lightly charred barrel. It's like, I could tell that the judges were like, huh. Because I said, in comparison to 1910, which is also Brown Forman, but it's a lightly charred, heavily toasted.
Yeah.
And I could see them like, how does he know that? And I'm just like, it's because I had I didn't get it in that conversation, but in my mind, I'm like, I know this because
I've heard firsthand.
I've had this conversation with a person and I just remember it, So yeah, very fortunate to have that. But yeah, that was Woodford. And on that one, because I knew that it was Woodford, I worked backwards, like with Eagle Rare, it was tasting notes, proof, what I thought the mash bill was, what I thought the age was, and then deducing, okay, that's probably Eagle Rare or it's a Buffalo Trace product. With the double oaked, it was like, that's double oaked. And then I'm like, okay, double oaked. Let me think. All right. So it's barrel finished. I know that. Mm-hmm. I know that it's 90.4 proof. I know that it's 18% rye mash bill. So I worked backwards on that one. But then there was one more that I knew what it was as well. Mm-hmm. And I worked backwards, but the other 6, it was all tasting, figuring out what proof was, figuring out what I thought the rye mash bill was, or the mash bill was, mm-hmm. and then trying to figure out from the list what producer it may have been. So,
So they weren't, say, like, judging you on your ability to call the bourbon. It's not like the SOM test, where you have to be able to say this is a 1984 whatever. So they're not judging you on your ability to be correct or incorrect on what you're sampling, more your ability to taste what it is, to talk about what it is, the properties of the bourbon.
They were testing my Matt ability, is what I call it, my Matt ability. And as Matt always says, as long as you say it with enough confidence, then people are going to believe you. So that's what I went in there and I did, Matt. I mean, seriously, I thought Matt says this shit every week. When I say, man, you're killing it, or somebody says, you're doing a great job, and you're just like, you say it with confidence, everybody's going to believe you, but you do a great job with it. But I did.
Sometimes saying it with confidence is making yourself believe it too.
I agree. I mean, 100%, Matt. So I went in there, and even though I was a nervous wreck to do that tasting, I was just like, you know what? This is what I taste. And they weren't really that specific on tasting notes, which kind of surprised me. They weren't really that focused on it. They were really more focused on, why do you think it's this mash bill? Why do you think it was finished this way, or what? I mean, so that's kind of different. But yeah, you don't have to know. They don't expect you to say. And they're like, it's impossible to do that. I'm like, well, it's impossible unless you just know. Yeah. I mean, when you know, right? Yeah. So kind of funny.
All right. So that's blind tasting done.
Blind tasting done. That's right, man. And then had a break. And then that afternoon, it was the afternoon. That's right. We did a 2-hour essay. Now, the thing about the essay is they gave us the 20 questions that could be on the exam ahead of time. So we had those. So a large part of what I was doing as I was reading the books, I was thinking about those questions and then pulling, okay, that would be good to answer in part for that question. So just developing the answer. And we could take our notes in. I mean, we could prepare. Okay. We couldn't write out the answer, but we could do an outline. And as long as you had an outline, you could bring that in. So I had 20 outlines. I had probably 35 pages of outlines.
Wow.
And then I'm like, I get in there and I'm like, oh, shit, I got 20 minutes per and I'm typing. You got to type your answers, man. So number one, I'm not the world's fastest typer. Number two, I probably put too much in my outlines to try to squeeze it all into a 20-minute essay. And I have not sat and typed straight like that for 2 hours. I could not tell you the last time, if I've ever actually sat and typed under pressure for 2 hours straight. And it was taxing. I mean, mentally, when I was done with that, I mean, I was worn out. I mean, honestly, I was just like,
I believe that.
I was like, damn, that was crazy. I mean, just absolutely crazy. But I felt pretty good. I mean, obviously, as an attorney, it's one of those things you do. You know how to research, you know how to write, you know how to make your case. And even though I don't litigate, I still have to know how to do that. I mean, that's part of the training. It's part of the job, right? And even in what I do in real estate, I mean, part of the job is finding the answers and convincing other people what those answers are in a concise way. Mm-hmm. So that's really the way I approached it. It was like doing a research project for something legal, finding the answers in these books, and then making those outlines and taking that information in with me and trying to be as concise and to the point as I could. So I think it worked out. Matt, believe it or not, man, we're almost at the end of round 2. So maybe we should talk about and I haven't had a taste in a while. So I'll throw it to you for your tasting and
sure thing.
Finish.
The 4-grain E.H. Taylor, it's got a fair amount going on, I'll say. First, I think it definitely drinks old.
Yep.
Drinks like an older whiskey. Good amount of oak, the leather and tobacco come through on the front of the palate. To me, I get this taste of like butter pecan ice cream.
Okay. I can see that. Because I was sitting here like, man, there's something sweet in there and I can't. But it's almost,
like savory, buttery.
Yep.
Sweetness, but so like butter pecan ice cream.
Great.
Kind of comes through to me. Then I think some of the rye brightens it up. I get like red fruit, red berries, dried red berries, maybe like a dried blueberry or some sort of a like savory type blueberry dessert with it. But then I think the wheat shows up a little bit on the finish. It's got kind of that hot, toasty cinnamon. I don't want to say it's not terribly tannic, but little bit of kind of that like long tannic, warm, somewhat drying, kind of wheated finish. I would think too, with a touch of rye spice in there.
Matt, something that stuck out to me in terms of doing this tasting, the preparation, was that, because I had Maker's Mark, had Larceny, and also had Weller Special Reserve. We had Willet Pot Still too, actually. And I count it, but anyway, the other three, when I taste those wheaters, I get berries from the wheat. Because people talk, oh, it's so sweet and smooth. And in my mind, I don't know how I translated that or what I thought that was supposed to mean. But everybody says, oh, wheat whiskey, wheat, it softens it. It makes it sweeter. It's like, well, how does it make it sweeter? And as I was doing this, to me, that translates into almost like a berry, like almost like strawberry jam sometimes, or you were talking about blueberries or, even the dried, red berries. With wheat in a mash bill, for some reason, man, I pick up those notes now. Mm-hmm. So that's to me what wheat in a mash bill does. I don't know if that's right or not, or if that's the universally accepted standard. But to me, when I taste that now in a bourbon, I'm just like, that tastes like tastes like it has wheat in the mash bill, because I get such a strong, predominant berry kind of profile on it, and I get that berry on this as well. So,
hey, you found what works for you to pick out a wheater.
Yeah, I think that's it. I think that's really that was one of the hardest things, man, in this whole process was just, because I got online initially and I'd go to the distilleries and I'd look at their notes, and that was kind of my baseline. That's where I started. Mm-hmm. Okay, I should get this, and this, and this. So every time I was doing a blind tasting, and I would write my notes, and then Anita was going over it with me, and I had flashcards. I had everything written out, and then she'd be like, well, the tasting notes from the distillery or from like Breaking Bourbon or whoever has done a review, and I trust those. Breaking Bourbon usually has pretty good reviews. Mm-hmm. The tasting notes were just totally different, and I'm just like, it would be, so frustrating to me though.
But the tasting notes are so subjective.
They are.
And they change from day to day.
I agree.
And power of suggestion.
Nope.
If somebody tells you they taste a pepperoni pizza and you're convinced enough, chances are you'll find a way to taste pepperoni pizza.
Who said that on our show?
I forget now.
Jay Harrisman. You remember? He was talking
it was Jay. Oh, yep.
He's like, if you say you get pepperoni pizza, then I'm going to tell you that you got a problem.
Yeah. I forgot who it was.
Matt, now all I can taste is my grandma's strawberry.
There you go.
Strawberry preserves now. Well, man, we should take a quick break, get away from our sponsors, and we'll come back and wrap this show up with more about Master Bourbon and maybe even delve into some Derby. Since this show's coming out the day before Derby.
That's right.
Maybe talk a little Derby to you.
Yeah, talk Derby to me, baby.
All right, Matt, let's take a quick break. We'll be back with more in just a minute.
The Stave Restaurant is a bourbon lover's paradise right here in the heart of bourbon country. Located at 5711 McCracken Pike in Millville, Kentucky, between Castle and Key and Woodford Reserve, Chef Kyle Klatka prepares amazing food each day that features an elevated Kentucky-inspired cuisine. With a full-service bar, great bourbon flights, and signature cocktails, the Stave is the perfect place to catch up with friends after a fun-filled day of touring the local distilleries. Be sure to check them out online at thestavekentucky.com or at Instagram and Facebook at The Stave Kentucky.
All right, everybody, welcome back for the third and final round of the Bourbon Life Podcast. I'm your host, Mark, and with me tonight live here in the Bourbon Life Studios, it's my good beanie-wearing buddy, Matt. How you doing down there, man?
Good. I'm doing well, Mark. And to our listeners, thanks for sticking around so far. Sorry you're stuck with just us tonight. But
hey, come on, man. We're the OGs.
That's right. We are. When we can't find people to come on, we are the entertainment. We are the guests. We're the talent.
Yeah.
Or the untalent, depends on.
I almost moved everything upstairs, Matt, and just set it up on the kitchen island to be reminiscent of our very first episode. And I was going to ask you to wear your swishy, just leave your swishy coat on.
Yeah.
And just do the whole thing over again.
just for old time's sake.
Shits and giggles, right?
Yeah. But hey, we are back. Bourbon Life Podcast presented by VisitLEX.com.
Listen to Matt.
Is it VisitLEX.com or just VisitLEX?
Yeah, VisitLEX.
Okay.
Yeah, man.
Which you can probably find at VisitLEX.com.
Yes, VisitLEX.com. You can find all the information about VisitLEX at VisitLEX.com.
Yeah, so we're appreciative of them. We're also appreciative of all of our sponsors. Gosh, we are in our fourth season here, and we've been so lucky.
We really have. I mean,
not just my parents say that they like our show, but a bunch of sponsors and other companies that have been willing to work with us and stick with us and support us.
You know what? I want to talk about that since you brought that up, because we had a really interesting thing happen Friday night.
That's right.
Would you say? I mean,
Yeah.
So the Stave restaurant has been, Rebecca and Eric have been with us from day one, man.
Yeah.
She bought in 100% before we even knew what we were doing.
I still don't know if we know what we're doing, but we're.
And they bought in, man. And they
Yeah.
have supported us the whole time, which has been awesome. So we went out to celebrate. My wife arranged a little celebration party for me Friday night. You and your girlfriend came out.
Mm-hmm.
Stacy was able to make it. And my sister-in-law, Jan, was here from Nashville. So we had fun. We had a great dinner. I love the food out there, the drinks, everything. It's just such a cool environment. Really enjoy getting to go out there and hang out.
Mm-hmm.
So we get up, and I noticed these guys had kind of been looking at our table, and I'm like, I thought, well, maybe they're attorneys or something. You know, I thought, well, maybe I knew them or had run it, you know.
Yeah. You thought you were about to get served for this.
Yeah, I'm like, what's going on here? So I get up to leave, and one of the guys stops me, right? And he's like, hey, aren't you the guy from the Bourbon Life? And I'm like, oh, you got to be shitting me, dude. This is crazy. Because, I mean, it really never happens. You know, I mean, sometimes at Liquor Barn, just because it's at Liquor Barn, people are like, hey, aren't you? Yeah. So, but yeah, here's the Stave. And this guy's like, man, we came up from Mississippi. I can't remember his name. Shoot, I'm sorry if you're listening. I apologize for forgetting your last name. But he and his buddies had come up. They'd gone to Keeneland. They were going to do distillery tours. And he was like, man, we hear you guys talking about the Stave all the time. So we came out here because we hear it on your show. And I was like, that's just awesome. I mean, absolutely awesome that, you know, somebody actually listens to us. But someone's actually, you know, it's benefiting our friends, Rebecca and Eric at the state. You know, it is, it's paying off for them. So that just made me feel good to know that those guys were there, 6 guys up from Mississippi, and they could go anywhere, and they went to the Stave, man. So just really cool story.
Yeah, it was a cool story.
Yeah. Anyway, so let's talk about what we're drinking this round, right?
Yeah, you've got the bottle.
I do. Matt, I'm just going to tell you, this has become my favorite high rye bourbon ever. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The wheated high rye mash bill.
The high rye Maker's Mark Cask Strength bourbon. Yeah. Few people know that it's a high rye bourbon, but there are 7.
At least, only 7 people.
There were 7 candidates who are vying for the first certification of Master of Bourbon, who, in their blind tasting last Wednesday morning, picked Maker's Cask Strength as a high rye bourbon. 7 out of 7.
Yeah, and this was like to the grave. This is high rye mash. Like you all were.
Oh yeah, man. I didn't argue, but I kind of became the leader of the pack in our discussion. The 2 other guys, but they were supporting me. They're like, "This is a high rye." And then one of the other guys, Chase, who was sitting beside me, he added some water to it. And then he took a drink. He goes, no. He goes, you know what? He's like, I'm thinking this is actually a kind of a much lower rye. But this is a really low rye mash bill bourbon. So everybody still thought it was a rye. But Chase was the only one out of the 7 of us who actually changed from high rye. Everybody else, and initially it was high rye. So that was the first bourbon we did. Of course, we didn't know. You know, we're blind tasting everything, right? 3.5 minutes. Mm-hmm. First one we taste. And I went back to that one so many times. And even as we were talking, because we did 30-minute blind tasting and then an hour and a half discussion with the judges. So during that hour and a half, you know, they kept saying, well, what about number 1? Let's go back to number 1. What makes you think it's a high rye bourbon? Oh, I'm going through all this. Because the way it affects my palate, I could feel it on my tongue. And one of the judges like, how about let's add some water? So everybody adds water. And then Chase was like, no, I think this is a low rye. It's kind of changed it for me.
But the judges were blind, right?
The judges were blind too.
They didn't know what they had poured up.
Which is really cool. So they understood.
So they thought too this.
Yes, I think several of them did, because one of the judges, after they found out before, obviously, the questioning, right?
Yeah.
And I think, you know, one of them, Steve Beal, who's just a legend in the bourbon industry, worked for Diageo forever. He was just like, you know, sometimes you get on the train and you get off at the wrong stop, but you get off at the wrong stop and you stay committed to that. And then you end up in the wrong place. I'm like, so I know he's telling me we're wrong, but I'm like, I'm not wrong. I can't be wrong.
Hey, say it with conviction.
I
right?
did. I was being I matified it, man. I'm like, you know what?
I don't know if that really gives me credibility or not.
Oh man, I was all over it. But we all were. Everybody was supporting it, and even in the other group, the other 4 guys, they all were saying that the makers' Cask Strength was a high rye bourbon. So
7 out of 7.
7 out of 7 Masters of Bourbon
candidates
can't
call this their favorite high rye wheated mash bill.
Yeah. So I don't know, Matt. What do you pick up on the nose on this one? Because I obviously don't know anything.
So to clarify, this is the Maker's 46.
This is the
Cask Strength.
46.
So this isn't just the
different.
regular Maker's. So this is their Stave finished in the French oak.
Yep.
Finished at Cask Strength. Lots of fruit, berries, jam, strawberries, raspberries right up front.
Which would now make me say, gosh, this is really reminiscent of what a wheated mash bill would taste like. But I swear, man, on that Cask Strength
and
Makers.
Yeah, and the Cask Strength Makers, of course, doesn't have all the French oak finish in it. And
true.
I find that French oak often leads to a lot of those really rich. Juicy berry flavors and aromas.
That makes sense.
But it has that like toasted bread and jam, kind of like pancakey type smell to it. Actually getting more toast, like more of the toasted flavors than I was expecting to pick up too. I think the addition of that French oak, the toasting of it, really comes through on the nose with this.
Now, how funny, we've done 2 Stave finished. Mm-hmm. Who would have ever thought that, man? 5 years ago, if you'd said, hey, guess what? You're going to be drinking bourbons with staves that have been in them, finishing them. I get the sweetness from those like dried fruits, but also going back to that kind of that brown sugary sweetness that comes through. But
like a confectionery
something.
Sweetness.
Yeah, it's extremely sweet, but very, very fruity, very berry forward, like you said, on the nose. Mm-hmm. So that knowing of course what it is, and being like, oh yeah, there's that berry I was talking about. But it does. I mean, that to me is what I think a wheated mash bill would smell like across the board. Yeah. That's that sweetness that, even though that's got the French oak, but man, something about that regular Maker's Cask Strength, man, just threw us all off. So kind of crazy.
Hey, you still made it through. But so we've made it through the blind tasting here. We made it through your
essay exam.
Your essay exam.
Yeah.
Now day
2. Well, day 3, but day 2 of testing. Yeah,
is the big
oral exam. Yeah, which is it's like they could ask you anything. So be prepared. I'm like, how do you be prepared when a judge
for anything
ask you anything?
Yeah.
Our panel was much easier on us than I think the other panel was on the other guys, because some of the questions I heard because it wasn't uniform, right? You could ask whatever. The good thing was the executive director was in both. He went back and forth. So he observed how everybody was handling things and the questions that were being asked. Mm-hmm. So he could kind of take that into consideration as well.
So he's like kind of running quality control between the two groups, making sure no one's like asking something completely
one of the other groups.
Out of the air.
One of the questions, and they structured theirs different because there were 4 of them. So they gave them each 15 minutes. And for 15 minutes straight, the judges drilled that one person. Whew. Yeah. So for us, the judges were like, I'm turning my head.
Right. Yeah, you're trying not to be noticed. There's only 3 of you guys.
I'm not really here.
Yeah, good luck with that.
Yeah. But yeah, so it's just random call. And then some of the questions were just like, okay, anybody want to answer? So it was that kind of question.
Yeah.
I know one of the questions that they got in the other one was name the 6 distilleries that had medicinal permits to distill, what their names were during Prohibition and what their names had been previously. Oh yeah. And if somebody had asked me that, I would have been like, I know Brown-Forman had it. I know Buffalo Trace had a medicinal permit, but I can't remember what they were even called. If it was Stag Distillery back then, I don't even know what they were called. I know. And like there was American Medicinal Distilling. I mean, I've read these books, Matt, and I still couldn't tell you what they were. So yeah, some of those questions were just like kind of wild. But it was funny because one of my judges, he's a German guy, Bernhard Schaefer. He's a great dude, man. And funny, he flew out of Lexington. So the day after everything was finished, Friday, I took the day off work, and he actually came over and we hung out all day, which was great.
Nice.
Just had a really good time. But
Which would have been really awkward if you failed.
Yeah, it would have been. I would have left. I would have been like, I'm out. I don't even want to talk to anybody. But he gave us like 2 or 3 different quotes. He's like, okay, so I'm going to ask you who said this, and he just spouted off some quotes about bourbon.
Wow.
I had just happened to watch a bourbon documentary on YouTube like 4 or 5 days before. Randomly was going through YouTube, typing in bourbon and looking for little videos to watch, and sat and watched this video. And George Washington had made a quote about whiskey being essential to the troops, and it has to be provided to the troops on a daily ration. And that was a quote. And he was like, does anybody know? And I was like, hell yeah, dude. George Washington, everybody knows that, right?
Oh,
I mean, seriously.
Red-blooded American knows
Everybody knows that. And then he had a Mark Twain quote. I was like, no idea. Somebody else knew that one.
Oh.
But yeah, so it's just, but we had a good time, and it's like us talking. That's what ours was. The other panel, 15 minutes each, like drill. Totally different environment, totally different scenario. Name 3 distilleries that use non-GMO corn. It's like, I don't know.
Hopefully most of them.
Well, that's what I was thinking. I was like, I think most of them do. I mean, I probably would have guessed, but it's not something that I know for sure. So yeah, just some of the questions I think were, I don't know that they were harder, but it was just, I think the way the other panel was set up was a little tougher on them.
Yeah, it sounds like your panel was more of a discussion.
It was.
Rather
It really
than
was.
like a public berating of sorts.
Yeah, exactly right. Like a flogging.
Yes. Correct.
So it worked out well. I was very, very happy with that.
Mm-hmm.
I felt pretty good after, at least about that part of it. The essay I felt pretty good about. The blind tasting afterwards, because I knew 2 of them. I knew what 2 of the 6 were, or 2 of the 8 for sure were.
Mm-hmm.
And then I knew after because they told us at the end when we were done what they were, and I was like, okay, I got 4 out of these 8 right. So I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
I'm feeling pretty good.
Odds are starting to look pretty all right.
But then we had a dinner. We had a dinner every night, which was great, and it was a blind tasting. We didn't have to comment. They didn't quiz us.
Yeah.
But the first night, Tuesday night, it was like 6 blind bourbons, and I actually got Knob Creek 12 right because they were asking what everybody thought it was. And one of the guys that was there, he was a master of Scotch, one of the first from last year. They got certified, but he was setting in as well as a panel, a judge, and he said, "This kind of tastes like Knob Creek 12." And I was going back and forth. I'm like, "This is Knob Creek, or this is Booker's." I'm like, "It's not hot enough to be Booker's." So when he said that, I was like, "Yep." I said, "This is Knob Creek. It's 12-year-old Knob Creek." And he pulled it out of the bag, and it was. Of course, everybody's like, "Yeah."
Nice way to make a good impression.
I know. And then I was like, "Damn it! I probably shouldn't have done that," because now they're going to think tomorrow I'm going to have to be on point, right? The next night we had another great dinner, and everything was catered by a company out of Nicholasville called Type A Catering. Great job, man! Exceptional people, super nice. The owner was there. She was just a wonderful person. I think her name was Diane, but super sweet. And the food, everything was just really, really top quality. So the second night, we had a dinner and we did a blind Scotch tasting. Wasn't really my thing, man, because I'm not a big Scotch drinker. But it was cool to watch these guys, especially the European guys that are really, really, really into Scotch, how they approached it, how they did it, how they tasted, how they added water, how they went through their whole thing, and how they gave their notes. The first night, Tuesday night, the first bourbon, one of the guys there, his name's Sebastian Galvier. He's incredible. I mean, his palate's just impeccable. So he starts, he's just like, he looks like one of those guys you see on like TV or something. He's got the little glasses on, and he's a little small guy, but he gets his nose in there, man. And he just starts ripping off these notes. And he's like, yeah, and I think, it's approximately this age. And it tastes like there's some blended young whiskey with some older whiskey because I'm getting these notes from the young. I mean, he's just going through it. And I'm just sitting there like, oh my God, this guy could possibly, he wasn't on my panel. But at that point, I didn't know because that was Tuesday night. And I'm just sitting there thinking,
what have I done?
Oh shit, this guy could be one of my judges.
Yeah.
Man. I was petrified, man. Seriously. I was just like, oh my God. But he's a great guy. All the judges were great people, fun. especially afterwards, after we get the results on Thursday night,
Yeah.
but that was the thing. We had to so we finished all the exams by noon on Thursday. Then we do a tour. The judges deliberate, for like 3 hours amongst themselves.
Yeah, so you're like on this tour trying to enjoy yourself, but you're like, I can't enjoy myself.
And
I'm so tightly strung right now.
Yep.
And so nervous and stressed.
Another 3 hour dinner on top of that.
Oh, that would be trying to enjoy a nice catered dinner.
No. And just
On
sitting
the
there the whole
edge of
time.
your seat. Yeah, like twitching like there's a hand grenade just ready to go off at any second.
Yeah. And then at the end, dinner was over and they took us one by one back to they had like their panel of 4 or 5 guys and gave us our results, man. So,
wow.
Yeah, it was reminiscent of like fraternity.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Like,
I was like, did I get blackballed?
Knights of the Templar or something here.
It was a little intimidating, man. But of course, after the fact, it's just like everything's forgotten and it's all wonderful. So, But it was a great experience, Matt. I mean, absolutely loved it. Wouldn't change a thing. Mm-hmm. It was just a great experience, personally for me as well. So happy to be able to do that.
Yeah, we are. I know I'm so impressed.
Thanks, man. I appreciate
know
that.
how much time, how much work, how much effort, and just how much heart you put into it.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that.
It's always great to see you really dive into something and go for it. And I didn't have a doubt in my mind you were going to do great. Pass with distinction.
Man, I appreciate that very much. There were times, it's like Iron Man. I mean, you train and you're like, why the hell am I doing this? I mean, and even when you're in the midst of it, you get it's the mental thing, it's like, why am I here? Why am I doing this? What am I trying to prove? Who am I trying to prove this to? I'm not good enough to make this happen. I don't know why I'm doing. I mean, the thought process, Matt. You go through it. I mean, when you're racing, right?
Yeah,
very similar. And then once it's over, you're like, no problem.
This is awesome. Let's do it
Let's
again.
do it again. Yeah,
tomorrow.
Yeah. Well, there is a master or a certified whiskey. Wait, a master of whiskey. That's what it is. So that's the 4th level, which I will not be doing. My wife's already told me I won't be doing it, but no, that involves, knowledge of Scotch, of Irish whiskey, of Japanese whiskey, Canadian whiskey. And yeah, I can drink those, but and I was telling them, I'm like, look, I probably have 500 bottles of whiskey in my basement. I own 1 bottle of Scotch. That's it. And I just bought it like a month ago. Seriously. That's it. I have 1 bottle of Irish whiskey and that's it. So it's just not something I'm passionate about. I mean, bourbon and rye, yes, I'll obviously every day, it's what I enjoy doing and I love it. But no, I don't have any desire to, yes, I want to learn and yes, I will continue to learn. And yes, I will broaden my horizons and try to start exposing myself more to Scotch and Irish whiskey and Japanese whiskey just to develop an appreciation. But as far as going to a master level, it's like, no, don't think so, man.
Yeah.
All right, Matt, we should probably talk about, we were going to talk a little bit about Derby. I guess we could do that, but I don't want to drag on all night long. So
all right, so we'll just do real quick.
Yeah.
Derby.
Yeah. Derby picks.
All right. So this is coming out the day before the Derby, the 2023 Kentucky Derby, the 149th running of the Roses here in Louisville, Kentucky, Churchill Downs.
That's right.
Just some quick facts. It'll be a $3 million purse. First place taking home $1.86 million. Second place at $600K and third place at $300K. This is a 1.25 miles on the dirt track. Yep. First run in 1875.
My birthday, May 17th.
May 17th. What do you know?
I learned that yesterday, man. I was like,
you learned your birthday was May 17th?
I did. Yesterday? I know, Matt. It's been, been a rough couple of weeks for me.
Yeah. What can I say?
The first one was run on May 17th, which just happens to be my birthday as well. So,
yeah, man. So anyway, and we are this year celebrating the 50th anniversary of Secretariat, maybe the greatest horse to ever have run the Derby. You've got that with beautiful Secretariat bottle.
The Derby, yeah. See, I can't figure out which way to hold it. There you go. Yep. But yeah, beautiful bottle. I bought that for my cousin. She collects them. My cousin who passed away in 2016, he and his wife always collected those, and that was one of their first dates was watching the Derby. They lived in Florida. He passed away in 2016, but she still continues to collect, just kind of to commemorate him and their relationship. So she messaged me and asked if I could get her a bottle. I was like, sure thing.
Nice.
And I had to beg, borrow, and steal to get that, man. I mean, these have gone crazy. I guess because it's the 50th anniversary of the Secretariat.
Yeah.
So
I got to try to find one of those now.
yeah, I'm telling you, man, it was a difficult task, but I was able to track one down, man.
What
So
a guy. All right, so let's run through it real quick before we run out of time here.
Yeah,
So
man.
well, we got 20 horses right now.
Yes,
This
sir.
is Tuesday, so who knows what will happen throughout the week. If things will change, odds will, of course, change. There might be a scratch or two here and there. Nobody knows until they actually run out and get them in the gates post time, and we hit the bell and go. So, post position number 1, hit show. Post position number 2, verifying. Number 3, 2 fills. Number 4, confidence game. Number 5, tap it trice. Number 6, King's Barnes. Number 7, Reincarnate. Number 8, Mage. 9, Skinner. In the 10th position will be Practical Move. At number 11 is Disarm. 12, Jace's Road. 13, Sun Thunder. 14, Age of Empire. 14 is Forte. 3-1. The favorite going into things right now.
That's right.
In the 16th post is Ray's Kane. Coming in at post number 17th out of Japan will be Derma Sodagake. Number 18, Rocket Can. 19, Lord Miles. And the final 20th post on the far outside, furthest from the rail, is Continuara. 50-1 odd as we look at it right now.
Hey, that's where Rich Strike was last year.
That's
80-1,
exactly
right?
where Rich Strike was. A lot
First
of people
one
got
that-
rich on that one. That's right.
The first horse to ever win from that position, as a matter of fact, last year, from that 20th position. I'd made, the little notes right now, like you said, Matt, the Forte is the 3-1 favorite. He had earned the most Derby points going into this. Trainer's Todd Pletcher, who is 6, let's see, what is it? The horse, I'm sorry. The horse has actually won 6 of his 7 races, and he's 2 for 2 this year. So looking pretty strong there. And then the other one is Tap It Trice. He is 5-1. And interesting fact is that the horse starting in the 5th position has won 10 derbies, and that's the most of any position.
Oh.
Yeah. So kind of interesting to know that note. And then the number 3 horse, Angel of Empire, is 8-1. I just, like you said, I mean,
Number
all this,
3, number 14.
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. Number 14.
Yeah, 14.
I'm sorry. I meant the third lowest odds at this point is 8-1 Angel of Empire. So yeah, man, it's going to be interesting. It's always great. Everybody parties and has a great time, and 2 weeks long, right? For a 2-minute horse race.
Absolutely. So what's your pick, Mark?
I don't know, man.
Let's put it out on paper right here.
Yeah. You know what? The Forte is obviously looking strong, but I think that Tap It Trice, obviously going off at 5-1 right now, has had a really good season. And coming off at that 5th position, I think maybe fate, history may be on its side. So I'm going to go with Tap It Trice.
Ah, good pick.
Yeah.
I'm going to go down to the number 14 position, Angel of Empire.
Are you?
I am at that 8-1 odd. I did a little bit of research on the horse. It's been having a good year. I expect it maybe to break late,
Okay.
which supposed to be a nice day. Not a lot of mud on the track, so
Right.
horses might not run pissed off if they get a bunch of mud flown in their faces. So it should be clean track, hopefully. So it could really lead to a race that's not run wire to wire by
And
a horse
fast.
that just doesn't want to get dirty.
And a fast race.
It could,
too.
yes, it could be very fast. So anyway, I'm going to say at the 14th post,
All right.
Angel of Empire.
We're on record, man. So this comes out Friday, so we'll find out the next day, right?
Yeah, exactly. Just like our tasting notes, we're going to find out just how wrong we are.
It's a high rye horse.
Speaking of,
Oh yeah.
close us out here with our
Yeah,
tasting
man.
notes on the 46 Cask
The
Strength.
berries just keep coming through to me on the palate. We talked about that that strawberry jam type of thing, man. That sweetness comes through, those berries come through, and to me, it just translates into like a nice, like a strawberry preserves or something my mama used to make. I get that. Some nice toasted sugar flavor. That French oak. Some spice comes through on that as well. Not quite like a high rye bourbon, but
Yeah.
And I think in that French oak adds that little bit of that spiciness to it as well. But yeah, really, really nice. I really like this, man. At Cask Strength, I mean, 46 is good, but there's
Cask Strength.
something about it at Cask Strength that really kind of ups the game on this one for me. So
I got to agree with you there. I think, of course, the berries, those kind of French oak red wine fruits and berries come through right away. There's a toastiness. And I pick up like that rock and rye cola. Like that cherry cola type flavor and aroma. But like you were saying, hot finish. Got some spice to it. I've been finding lately that my palate has been picking up warm finishes on wheated bourbons.
Yeah. Okay. So see,
to me, this would track right in line.
The master of the master says it. So we know right here. So, all right. Well, that's good. Well, Matt, we are at the end of round 3 here, man. Any final thoughts before we wrap it up? Send it home.
Thanks everybody for sticking with us tonight. We appreciate it, or this morning, this afternoon, whenever it is. Appreciate you coming along. Thanks to all our sponsors for everything you all done for us. And Mark, congrats, man.
Thanks,
Master of Bourbon, 1 of 5 in the world. That's pretty sweet.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that. It's funny. Somebody gave me grief the other day for saying that it's humbling, because I say it's humbling. It is. To me, it is. When I was sitting there, it was extremely humbling to have these experts to say, we think you're good enough and we think you are qualified enough to be at this level that we are at. It's like crap. It's just it's hard to conceptualize. It's hard to sit there in the moment and be like, yeah, that's me. I deserve that. So it is humbling when that happens. So when I say that, sometimes people are like, oh yeah, fake humility, whatever, blessed, hashtag. But it really is. It is a humbling experience to have people of that caliber to say that they think that you're good enough to be at the level they're at. So yeah, I'm super thankful. Appreciate the support, obviously, Matt. Appreciate the matification, man. The inspiration to be confident about seriously the confidence to walk in and say, this is what I taste, and this is why I taste it, and this is what I think, and and just let those chips fall where they may, which is what I did. It wasn't just vanilla and caramel. It was like this is what I taste, and I'm going to tell you what I taste, and you can say I'm wrong, but you know what? I'm going to say it with confidence. So I think that's the one thing I've learned from you for sure, and it helped me out quite a bit on that exam. So. All right, man. With that said, though, we are the Bourbon Life Podcast presented by VisitLEX. We appreciate their support. We appreciate the support of all of our sponsors. And like Matt said, whatever time of day is you're listening to us, we appreciate you guys joining us morning, noon, or night, whenever. Thanks for tuning in. Appreciate all your support. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to email us at thebourbonlife@gmail.com. You can follow us on Instagram or Facebook at The Bourbon Life. Also, you can join our private Facebook group, The Bourbon Lifers. We'd love to have you in there. And if anybody out there, I've already had like 3 different people reach out to me, Matt, about this, which is really cool. And I'm more than happy to talk to anybody, share my thoughts about it, let you know what I did, how I did it. But if anybody else is out there that's interested in maybe looking at this, I am here. I am now a member of the Council of Whiskey Masters. So I know it's kind of weird to say that.
I smell consulting on the rise.
Well, my thing is sharing this passion that I have with other people, but also the educational aspect of it. And if somebody feels like that's what they want to do, they're having a passion for bourbon and enjoying it is one thing, but wanting to delve in as deep as this requires, kind of a different thing. But if anybody out there really feels that desire or is interested, feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to help and answer any questions you can have. But with that said, Matt, I'm going to wrap it up, send us in with our tagline, which is, may your glasses always be full, and may you keep on living the bourbon life.
Thank you for joining us for this week's episode of the Bourbon Life Podcast. Our mission at the Bourbon Life is simple: to share our passion for all things bourbon with you every week. And we'd really love to hear your thoughts on how we're doing. You can find us on Instagram and Facebook at The Bourbon Life. You can also contact us by email at thebourbonlife@gmail.com. And you can always find us on your favorite podcast platform. If you have a moment, we'd love it if you would rate us and give us a review. So until next week, we hope your glass is always full and that you keep on living the bourbon life.